going to Camp Blood, ain't you?
God damn it, Ralph, get out of here. Go on, get. Leave people alone.
You'll never come back again.
Oh, shut up, Ralph.
Welcome back to SledgeHammer Horror, guys. I am Ken Sledge, and let's talk horror. Today, I am joined by veteran, best-selling author, and professional wrestler. I'm talking with Doc Collins. Doc, how you doing today, man?
Doing super well for a Monday. Not bad.
And for you wrestling fans, you may know him as Patton. As well, first off, before we do anything, man, I want to say thank you for your service. I know that when you were out there serving, it wasn't just you. I know you're a proud father, you're a proud husband, and I know they were out there with you, not only in spirit, but here at home. They were scared for you, wondering if you were okay. So all of us appreciate what you did. Thank you so much for your service, man.
Respect. I was glad to be able to do what I did. I love what I did. Honestly, I never served in combat, which is fortunate. I'm whole. I worked in pediatrics after serving for 4th Infantry Company. And I can tell you that I worked with bigger babies in the infantry. So my risk was lower.
Right. And the thing is, I have a lot of people that are like, well, I didn't see combat, or I have some friends of mine that were listed and never went overseas. You know what? You were brave enough to go and do what you did. Because of brave men and women like you, cowards like me get to work in an auto parts store and eat Subway while they're working at the counter. So I don't want to underplay or devalue the fact that you were a part, even though you didn't see combat, you were part of the service. You were willing to fight and risk your life for this country and the freedoms that a lot of people like I take for granted every single day. And because of the decisions that you made, you protected the freedoms that I have, whether you've seen combat or not. So it's very much appreciated from my end, everything that you did, my friend.
Thank you, Sledge. I really couldn't have hoped for anyone to say it better. That's very kind. And I know it's sincere. Thank you for that.
Well, my grandfather was a Navy vet, and he instilled in me every day that while he was over there, it wasn't just him over there. My grandma was here, and she was waiting for him to come home, and she was suffering just as much and fighting just as much as he was. So I know that it's not just you, man. And I'm a proud father too. I have a son and 2 daughters, and that I would do anything for. So I know what it feels like when you're, I mean, I can't say I know what it feels like to be away from them like that, but I can imagine the love and sacrifice that you're missing out on. So again, much respect to you, my friend. It really means a lot to me that you did what you did.
Well, what you do now that I'm an author and an entertainer, a performer again in the squared circle, I understand the value of escapism and the place that it has for people that are in those austere environments. We need to unplug. I mean, if it's safe enough, we need to turn off the good order and discipline from time to time and unwind with films, whether it's action, horror, drama, something that allows us to go to that place and escape our present reality. And so your podcast, your listeners, I mean, they can be listening to you at work. They can kind of do that multitasking thing, or while they're exercising. It has a place and it has a lot of value. So mutual respect to you, my brother.
There we go. I appreciate it so much, man. I want to talk a little bit about you first before we get into the reason why you're here.
Sure.
You live out in Williamsburg, Virginia with your family. You wrestle in the Mid-Atlantic. And your first book, 1,300 Hours, it's a military drama. It's the first in a 5-book series. So it's like a penta, what is that? Like a pentalogy, I guess you would call it. Not a trilogy, it's like a pentalogy. It's available on Amazon. You guys don't have to search for it though, because I have the links right down here in the description. And while you're clicking those links, I have all of Doc's links for his social media right down here in the description as well. So make sure you guys, when you're clicking these links, make sure you're checking this book out. I'm sure there's a lot of real life personal stuff there. And I can guarantee you, I give you the SledgeHammer guarantee, I'm going to have a copy of this book soon as well. I always practice what I preach. So, and make sure you're following him on social media. You can keep up with his wrestling career as well as everything else he's doing when the next books are coming out. So click the links down here in the description. Anything else you want to add to that, Doc?
Oh, man. I mean, I've had some really great people supporting me. And so I appreciate the upfront plugs. Because I mean, this is supposed to be mutual, right? We're supposed to help each other out. That's how commerce and relationships work with a good balance.
I love having people on the show, and it's not just because of my love of horror. And one thing I've always been into is learning how it started for people, because my parents owned a video store when I was growing up. So horror has kind of always been a part of my life. I had a job at the video store as a kid, and it was if people returned their VHS tapes unrewound, I had to put them in the little VHS rewinder and
Yeah.
rewind them. And if I did that, I got to rent one video and one Nintendo Entertainment System game at the end of the week. So I got my NES game and my VHS tape. And the first VHS tape I ever rented that was horror was House from 1986.
Yeah.
And that movie stuck with me. It's still one of my favorite movies to this day. I could put it on at any moment and be just lost in the film. And so I like to learn how that started for people. And that actually brings us to the reason why we're here. We're here to talk about how horror started for you, Doc, my friend. And your first horror movie was?
It was the same as your guest from not long ago, Callahan. It was Friday the 13th.
And I got to give a quick shout out, man. I just went and did a podcast with my buddy Robert Gifford and Adrian, Bobby Talks, ... And while I was there, the other guest, Marky Reese, a good friend of mine, gave me this. He was like, dude, I know how much you love the horror stuff. And this is a replica from Friday the 13th Part 3, which is my favorite Friday the 13th film. So I had to bring that up and show this because I'm so proud of this. I'm so happy about it. So do you remember how old you were the first time you seen Friday the 13th?
Yeah, I was 8 years old. So at the time on that syncs up. I was late to the party by a few years. That was, what year did it come out? 80.
Oh, I want to say it
Four?
was
6.
No, I think it was
4 or
70.
6.
I think Friday the 13th one was 78.
All right, so if that was
Maybe it was 80. I think it was 1980. The shirt says 1980, so that sounds right to me.
Great, so it was 88.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, and you say you got a late start to the party. You'd be surprised how many people I have on here that didn't watch their first horror movie till they were 14, 15, 16 years old because of the upbringing they had. Their parents didn't want them to watch it, or they were just too scared to watch it. And it's funny because you go back and watch Friday the 13th now, like it's so synonymous, obviously, with Jason Voorhees, and Jason Voorhees is Friday the 13th. But man, that first one is such a great mystery. It's a murder mystery, really, up until the end. And I'm a huge fan of it. Obviously, some of it doesn't hold up, but I'm a huge fan of Friday the 13th. Do you remember who you watched it with for the first time, Doc?
Yes. So my older sister was, let's see, she's 5 years my senior, and she had command of the remote control. And it was on a weeknight. I remember it was on like TNT or TBS, so it had commercial breaks. And I watched. So, I mean, obviously the cable release is going to be different than the video release. But I remember going back and forth from watching it and then watching it from around the corner in the kitchen. And I'm like, well, I'm just going to draw for a little bit of the kitchen table. And I remember hearing the screams and like running in and like half looking and going, oh my gosh, I want to look. I can't look away. So, of course, as it builds in the story, I'd had enough. My 8-year-old mind was pretty maxed out. So I'm in the kitchen, and my sister comes in. And she says, "You know, hey, it's over. It's the very end. There's no more scary parts. All of that is gone."
Oh no!
So I come back in to kind of like try and steal a little bit more time before I've got to go to bed, and I sit down, and literally the moment I get comfortable, when does that comfort set in? She's peacefully lying in the boat. It's not that. It's the cops. When the cops come, I go, policemen are here.
Yep.
The police are going to set everything. We're good to go. We're in the home stretch. No problem. Roll the credits. I made it through my first horror movie. Taking credit for all this stuff I didn't see. And then she gets ripped into the lake by the gory body. And just that image was seared into my mind, you know, until the next horror film that I got to see and manned up to.
I don't think people remember how great of a jump scare that really was. Because like you said, we're in the home stretch, man. The police are there. She's out in the boat. We just seen Mrs. Voorhees get beheaded. You know, like everything's fine now. And then young Jason, the first Jason, Ari Lehman, pops out of that lake and grabs her and takes her down in one of the best jump scares ever, man.
Yeah, and then when she's in the hospital and she's tripping, I mean, she's completely out of her mind. Then I've got all these questions from my sister. She's like, you missed it. You suck. You know, you should have stayed here, watch the whole thing like a grown up. And I was like, I'm not grown up. But no, it was interesting. I loved our earliest interactions and how you brought me back to that, and then of course allowed me and invited me to check out my mental hash marks in the timeline of my youth. So,
yeah, man. And it's funny, another thing about this movie that I don't think a lot of people remember that haven't watched it in so long, there's actually quite a bit of really good jump scares in this movie. And one that got me when I was younger, and I'll always remember this, when they're putting the pots and pans away and they open the door and Crazy Ralph is in that pantry. And he's like, "You're all doomed."
Yeah. And you're like, it's so ominous. And
yes.
I didn't pick up on so many of those nuances until I'd gone back. Probably, I want to say it was the next summer. So I'd watched that at about 8. And then 9 or 10, my parents allowed me to go to my friend's house for a sleepover where they had all of your parents' VHS tapes of, a stack of horror films. And we stayed up in the backyard in a tent and we got through 5, 6 of them. It was a Friday the 13th. It was a Nightmare on Elm Street megathon. And
yes, man.
And because it was my peers and not my sister, I felt like there was a little bit of, safety in numbers kind of thing. And we're going to be
a little bit of camaraderie there,
Yeah. None of our balls had dropped, but we're sitting there in our, in our youth, but in numbers, we were,
yep.
Are you okay with this? Are you okay? I'm cool. Are you cool? I'm cool. A lot of that.
Yeah, we're 12. We got the world by the balls, man. We know it all.
Oh, yeah.
So when you think of Friday the 13th, Doc, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
So I've got to give a shout out to my good guy, Jason. Jay Ferrier is a professional wrestler who has been on AEW, on TNT, the top premier growing professional wrestling company. And he has been one half of Capital Vice's tag team. And he takes on the Jason persona, and he's got a partner that had the Freddy Krueger persona. And he's got that mask tattooed on his right quad in spectacular fashion with a blood spatter that you would be excited. I'm going to have to get a photo of it and send it to you.
Yeah, please.
So it's made its way through the decades into my present, where a good bro who I got to spend the weekend. Let's be honest. I kicked his ass on Saturday night in front of a few fans in Delta, Pennsylvania. And we'll go back and forth with that, I'm sure. But I had to earn that respect this weekend. So, he's just a fanatic. He collects the toys and the memorabilia with a fervor that I have not seen in many adults. You and he would probably have some deep conversations that would confuse many, would alienate most, and would interest a few very deeply.
Yeah, man. And if you've seen the rest of the room, you would know it's all like that, man. I think for me, growing up, it was always horror movies, comic books, and baseball cards. I've always been a big collector of baseball cards too. I still got baseball stuff all over the house. I'm a big Detroit Tiger guy. I'm a huge fanatic.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Hey, Magnum PI.
Huh?
Magnum PI.
Yeah, man. Yes. See, and it's funny because I'm a huge Tiger guy, and people are like, "Wow, I didn't know that you were into all that." Love horror movies. What it was is my family. We worked in this little plaza, and we had our video store, which was in one part of it, and the very next door was my cousin Tim, and he had Tim's Cards and Comics, and so we'd go in there, and my dad would trade baseball cards, and I'd sit there and flip through the comic books, and like that was what we did, man. We had Downtown Video and Tim's Cards and Comics. So growing up, I was immersed in comic books, baseball cards, and horror movies. That was my youth. So it's still to this day, big baseball fan, big horror fan, big comic fan, and it's one of those things that just never left me.
Love it. You're a professional nerd.
Yes, absolutely. Get paid to be a nerd. So we talked about what scene affected you the most from Friday the 13th, but what would you say your favorite scene, Doc, from Friday the 13th would be?
So, a favorite scene from that film doesn't stand out because that's not the question you asked. You asked what my first horror film was. You didn't ask what my favorite horror film was. And I will say, to throw a curve, and I'm sure you don't have any trouble with the curve, Mr. Baseball. My favorite image or iconic moment in a horror film may put some people on the fence with qualifying it as a horror film, but the film Legend, when Tim Curry first broke through the black as this demon with these horns and that muscular frame, and his timing as a performer, I can appreciate how he sold and he just waited, and his breathing, the sound on it was, I mean, I can still hear the hooves as they in the dust. I mean, you can hear the dust. And when he breathes in through the prosthetic teeth and his deep voice, I mean, it has always stayed with me.
And you talk about Tim Curry as a performer just in general. No matter what Tim Curry's doing, he's giving it 150%.
That's the truth. Yeah. So it doesn't have anything to do with necessarily a death. It's not my favorite kill scene. It's just what has struck the most impactful, lasting image from that genre. And it's up for debate. Find me on Twitter. Fight me on Twitter. Legend has struck more fear in the hearts of young adults and teenage viewers, I think, than a lot of things that might go over the heads, psychological thrillers, murder mysteries, and things. If you don't catch it at the right moment, a lot of quality horror can go over the heads. But I don't care how old you are. When you see him break through, you're moved. I mean, you feel this might be the Prince of Darkness, as he's really, really, cast. I mean, straight out of heaven into the depths of hell, and now he's on my screen as a kid. I'm watching with ice cream dripping out of my mouth, like, oh, I'm in trouble now.
And it's funny you say that, because for me, and this is something I've been very adamant about for a very long time, horror is the hardest genre to nail down. For something to be a comedy, you got to make me laugh. For it to be science fiction, it has to be spacey or futuristic to me. But for horror, you can't say, well, it has to have death. The Lion King has death. It has to have blood and guts. I mean, The Notebook has blood and guts when they're getting shot up when they're at war. So there's no really way to say this is what horror is. To me, here's 3 movies that I'll fight till the death that are horror movies that people fight me on. Number 3, Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park, absolutely
frightening.
Yep. Number 2, Terminator. Not Terminator 2, but the original Terminator is a total slasher film. I mean, he's going through the phone book, killing every Sarah Connor that gets in his way. He's a Michael Myers, Jason Voorhees-esque slasher. He's out to get his victim, and he's not going to stop until they're dead. Total horror slasher film to me. And number 1, this is the biggest one that I fight, because I'll give you the fact that it's a horror comedy, but it is a horror movie, and that's the original Ghostbusters. That movie is a horror movie through and through.
I mean, just because they had the Slimer on the high C, no, it's a horror movie. I was scared out of my mind.
Dude, when you see the dogs for the first time, when Dana's getting taken,
of course,
when the librarian turns into that ghost, that's scary shit, man. And I will defend that till the end of the earth. Ghostbusters 1 is 100% a horror comedy. And
now a lot of people think Sigourney Weaver's, I don't know, like she's a hot item. I don't know. I mean, Justin Timberlake, they had a thing in the music video. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you look at everything. I mean, I love Sigourney Weaver. I think she's one of the best final girls all time when you look at Alien. I mean, she knows what she's doing. She's an amazing actress. And that's another thing that horror, it's an all-inclusive thing. And it's one of those, it's, to me, the genre that really made women badass. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, you had women kicking the shit out of these masked guys, out of aliens. They made the final girl a thing where it's like, look, you don't have to be a big, strong guy to survive something. These women are going to come out there and they don't need protected. They're going to get out there. They're going to get in your face and they're going to win. They're going to beat it. So I love that about horror.
Love it.
So I want to go back to Friday the 13th. And another thing we talk about with horror, as you brought up a second ago, is the kills. Friday the 13th, the original, doesn't have very many bloody, gory kills, but it does have some fun ones. What would you say your favorite kill from the original Friday the 13th is?
the teenagers that are caught making whoopee. Because as a kid, I mean, at that age, I was still naive to what are they getting into? I mean, it was the television. Remember, it was the network television version or cable version. It wasn't the video store version that I caught till later. But for me, I was still naive enough to know they're up to no good. They're doing something they shouldn't be doing. But that was later on in the Scream anthology. We got to learn what the rules are to verify that you're going to get the axe. If you're going to die, you're going to be disqualifying factor. And one is to be having the premarital sex, and that's it. You're done.
And it's funny because that will always make me think of Boy Meets World. They had a Boy Meets World episode where they were talking about the horror movie stuff, and he was like, what can we make sure we do that we never die? And the guy's like, virgins never die. And then the one guy's like, I'm dead. And the other one's like, I'm dead too. And then Sean's like, I'm going to get as sick as you could possibly get without actually dying. Like, even as a kid, I was like, that's fucking comedy gold right there, man. I love it. And it's funny because people often forget that aren't big horror movie fans. That's Kevin Bacon. You know, and afterwards, she sticks that arrow through his neck. And you see the arrow come up and the blood coming out. And everybody forgets that was Kevin Bacon in that scene.
Right. I think she actually cut him. It started at 6 degrees.
And just up through the mattress. You know what I mean? 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Thank you.
It took a second, but
somebody was going to put it in the comments. I know.
So another thing about this movie that I don't think it's talked often enough, we actually see Jason drowning in the lake. And at this time, he is disfigured, sure, but we're still watching a little boy drown in that lake. And it's such a heavy-hearted scene. As a kid, you're scared for him. And as a parent, you think about your kids out there. So I think that's a scene as an adult that affected me a lot. You're right. I heard that part of the interview with Callahan because you both connected on the parental front. And yeah, as a parent, the whole script gets flipped. And yeah, me and Callahan talked about The Exorcist. You know, The Exorcist gets completely flipped on its head when you're a parent compared to a kid. Sure. The torture that the parents would go through watching their child, be tormented, way worse than the personal experience could ever be. Absolutely. Do what you want to me. Just leave them the fuck alone. Exactly. And I know that I've said out loud more than once that, you do anything humanly possible and inhumanly possible, even through the membrane of eternity to right or wrong. If anything happens to my kids, it's lights out. So. Oh, it's a wrap. There's nothing I can do to stop what's going to happen. Yeah, that's a little heavy for me. But we talked about, Doc, your first horror movie, but now we talked about Scream a little bit, and I want to go Scream on you here for a second. What's your favorite scary movie? What is your favorite horror movie of all time? Hush. Oh, the newer film Hush. Yes. That was Mike Flanagan, right? Where she's deaf and they're in the cabin. Yeah. Fantastic movie. What a choice, man. So I'm an author that can relate to going to an isolated place to create. And I'm also, you may not know, I don't like put it out there, whatever, but I'm hearing impaired. I'm 88% reduced in this year and 22% in this year. So I've got one good ear. I watch lips very, very attentively, and I have hearing aids that are issued by the VA. Again, I've only had a great experience with the VA. They're replacing my damaged hearing aids right now, so that's why I don't have them in. But truly, that film connected on lots of levels. I mean, she was just getting over a breakup, and she was isolated in a creative mode to finish a project, which I can completely understand and relate to. But the way that they employed all the senses, and then just the mentality of the killer, he was just a dick. Yeah. He was just killing people and toying. And I thought that the hope spots, now in professional wrestling, we have our
vernacular and things. So there's shine, where the good guy gets their, good stuff in, and then they get cut off. Okay, well, I mean, when she got shot in the leg with an arrow, she was slowed down significantly. So he didn't learn about her hearing impairment until late, and so it was back and forth. So little hope spots for her, false finishes, many false finishes, and then the finale was very satisfying. And I mean, there are moments that you're like, oh, the boyfriend's gonna help. The boyfriend's gonna nope. I liked the psychology that they used in a modern setting, and it was entertaining from start to finish.
Loved it. I'm a huge Mike Flanagan guy. Mike Flanagan has a way of writing that I think is just pure brilliance, whether it's his TV work with The Haunting of Hill House, The Haunting of Bly Manor, or his films like Hush, Ouija Origins of Evil, The Doctor Sleep, which is the Shining sequel. I think that he did an amazing job on all that. I got 2 more questions for you before we go, Doc. Going back to Friday the 13th, since we're doing a franchise, I got to ask, what is your favorite film in the Friday the 13th franchise?
So that's easy for me. I worked and lived at different points in Queens, New York, and then I've worked in all 5 boroughs. I lived in Staten Island. And so to see Jason take Manhattan and then look for the places that I know I've been at different places and go, oh, that's changed over time. That's entertaining. That's the best. I mean, having lived and been there for New Year's Eve events, seeing the Thanksgiving Day parade, I know what it's like to be in full scale, packed out mode, New York City, and to see the image of him just strolling down the street with that machete in the rain that's menacing. I mean, even for New York City, and you can see anything in New York City, but that image right there is something that, again, you think about iconic moments in films. Same with wrestling matches. I love the bridge that we have here. It's not necessarily like, what's your favorite match of all time? Or what's your favorite movie of all time? It's broken down into moments.
Sure.
Moments. I always, when I'm working out a match with somebody, I want to identify, of course, the finish and reverse engineer how we get there. Let's tell the story that leads to that point. But let's identify a few moments. What's going to be the moment? The moment where, the good guy is caught with his, his pants down, or the bad guy really gets heat, like unexpected heat. And
you got your Mick Foley falling off the cage moments,
which was improv, was not talked about. There's no way that anyone would have signed off on that from the top. Vince McMahon would not have said, sure, go ahead, Mick.
Right.
I think that'd be a great idea. No, because he's trying to protect an investment.
Sure.
But in that moment, and I've listened to, this is another plug for a great podcast, Talk Is Jericho, has had Mick Foley on numerous times. And Mick's gone over that specific moment and how it came in his mind. Like, you only get to do this, for so long. And he saw a moment, he grabbed it. And I love it. So,
I can't. It's funny to think of Mark Calloway just being like, sure, let's do it.
Well, that's the trust that we have to have in one another, not just you can trust me with your body, but I trust you with your choices.
Right.
And in that moment, Taker could not show any remorse if he was cut in half. He had to just, that's right, I'm the dead man. And now you're dead too. He just have to, what do you do?
Right.
So it's remarkable being a live performance. There are no cut.
Right.
We are our own stuntmen.
I've always been a big fan of professional wrestling. My first wrestling event, I was a baby. I don't remember it, but my parents took me to WrestleMania 3 when Hogan slammed Andre the Giant. We were there in Detroit. I'm a Michigan boy. I don't remember it, so I'm not going to plug it at all. But it's just been in my blood ever since. I remember vividly remember sitting at my grandma and grandpa's house, WrestleMania 6, and my grandmother crying when the Ultimate Warrior pinned Hulk Hogan. My grandma was bawling. My grandma was the biggest Hulk Hogan mark in the world. And when the Ultimate Warrior did that body and got him for the 1, 2, 3, my grandma was out, dude. She was crying. And the thing about wrestling is people could say what they want. It's fake. It's fake. And that pisses me off. It's not fake. You go out there 360. I mean, you guys don't get a break. There's no off season for you. You're always going. You're always putting your body through pain. You jump off a fucking turnbuckle and a 300-pound guy ass flap you, and you tell me that doesn't hurt you. You guys put your bodies on the line, and like I said, there's no off season. There's no we need a break. It's a consistent. We're putting our bodies through hell. We're traveling with these guys that we know and love. We trust each other. Obviously, there's fights. It's family. That happens. But my God, the professional wrestlers have my love and respect forever because of what they put their bodies through. And like I said, I'm a big sports guy. Baseball, 162 games is grueling. But you know what? There's an off season for you to let your body rest and recuperate. UFC, those guys beat the dog shit out of each other, but they do a fight every couple of months. This isn't an every night thing, doing house shows and then doing the live performances and just always put it, and giving 100%, whether you have 30 people there or 300,000, you're still giving that same performance and putting your blood, sweat, and tears in it because there's that little kid in the crowd that just might grow up to be you one day, and you got to show him how to put on a goddamn show. So, man, I completely understand and I respect everything that professional wrestlers do. I love you guys so much, and you've kept me entertained for 35 years. I love professional wrestling. It's something I've always been a part of in my life. The first time I ever got in real trouble, I gave my sister sweet chin music as she walked around the corner in our living room. I didn't mean to. It was a total accident, but she caught that Shawn Michaels super kick, and that was a wrap for Daddy. I was impressed.
She didn't throw her hand up.
Yeah, she got it right in the temple, man.
Oh.
I felt bad because I didn't mean to do it. Shawn Michaels had just won. It was WrestleMania 12, hour and 6-minute Iron Man match with Bret Hart, one of my favorite matches of all time. And then, I'm amped. I'm the heartbreak kid myself, and get that super kick on little sister. Bam.
Wow. Yeah. You say you felt bad, but it probably felt good.
Oh, it did. I was like, take that, Bret Hart. So
my name's Sally.
So, man, Doc, this has been so much fun for me, but we always end it with the same question. We're going to a skull count, 0 being the worst and 5 being the best. We're going back to Friday the 13th, and we're ranking this movie on not production. We're not being film critics, acting, score, nothing like that. Just strictly what this movie means to you and how much this movie affected you. So 0 skulls being the worst and 5 being the best. What would your ranking of Friday the 13th be?
So it's cool that you use a 5-star rating or a 5-skull rating in wrestling. We can hear, they put on a 5-star match.
5-star match.
5-star match. Yeah, 5-star match, this, that. So they call me Patton.
Mm-hmm.
And this weekend I was asked, are you the general? I'm like, no, take it easy. Don't promote me. I'm not the general, Patton. Like, it could be like a 4-star general. I said, no, I'm not promoting myself. I'm a 3-star. I'll say, I will consistently give you a 3-star match. My character might get me over, and you might want to buy my T-shirts or my stickers or my merch. But I'm not going to, if the fans say, Pat, he's a 4-star general. And eventually, maybe one day, before I retire, they say I'm a 5-star quality. Mm-hmm. And that'll be a great payday. And so I'm going to go ahead and answer this question with 3 solid skulls.
Perfect. And it's funny because you're talking about 3, 4, 5-star wrestlers. I've talked to other professional wrestlers, and they say that when you go to the back behind that curtain and you have one of your fellow performers tell you that was a 5-star match, that's one of the biggest compliments you could ever receive when you have a fellow performer telling you that was 5 stars, man. That was perfect. That was great. You got
True.
people behind that curtain.
I don't want it to happen too early. I don't want to have that happen too soon, because then where do you go?
What do you follow up with?
You're throwing yourself off of a cage.
Yep. I'm
not ready to do that.
Yeah, your feet are still planted on top of the cage.
Yes.
Well, guys, this has been so much fun. I want to stress this again. Make sure you're clicking the links down here in the description. Make sure that you are checking out not only 1300 hours, but all the social media links that Patton Doc has down here. Make sure you're following him. I got Instagram, Twitter, everything down here in the description. Doc, don't go anywhere, man. I got a couple more questions for you. everyone else, as always, keep talking horror, stay what you are, and we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you, Sledge.